Okay, well, we're on to Blood Canticle. Just jumping right into this one, and I will admit, as much as I kind of hated Blackwood Farm by the end of it, I didn't hate Blood Canticle. I told myself I was going to give it 100 pages, and if I still wasn't entertained by then, or if I was just having a bad time, I was going to DNF it. I didn't DNF it. It's not good, but like it's better than Blackwood Farm. And it did teach me one thing. I did have to write this down, is that a canticle is a hymn or chant typically in a biblical text or church service. I just didn't know that. But in the context of this book of Lestat, kind of for some reason wanting to be like a saint, it makes sense, character development and like thematically. But yeah, in all honesty, I had a better time with this one than I did with Blackwood Farm. So Blood Canticle by Anne Rice, just kind of jumping right in here. It's the 12th book in the Vampire Chronicles series, and while it's not the final book, we still got another trilogy coming up. While it's not like the final book right now, it was the last one for a long time. And this one is the direct sequel to Blackwood Farm, picking up directly after that one, like by seconds. So we are going in full spoilers for all of the Vampire Chronicles up until this point, especially this book. And like it's the 12th in a series, I'm trusting you to know why we're here. So the quick summary is that we are back with our boy Lestat, finally, since Memnoch. Hi. I have a cat pacing around, so you might see her ears. But we are finally back with Lestat ever since, like Memnoch the Devil, where he is actively turning Mona into a vampire. There's a few scenes before that, but the main, opening scene is he's turning Mona Mayfair into a vampire, and the story kind of follows along the sequence of events in regards to, Lestat meeting Rowan Mayfair and discovering the Telltales people. Sorry about the tail. So we meet Rowan Mayfair, we meet Michael Curry, and we finally get to find out what happened to Mona's child that was set up over in Blackwood Farm. And the writing style, I noticed right from the get-go, is just that, like, it's trying to return to form. It's really trying to kind of return to form, because we're finally back in Lestat's head. But it's also a little awkward, because it feels like it's trying to intertwine, that old form style, making it kind of like new and fresh, and weaving in, that Anne Rice weirdness, because Lestat is calling everyone, like, dude. And it feels like Lestat is trying so hard to blend in, like, with the youths, but he's a 200-year-old vampire, and it's not working. It kind of works when it doesn't work. You know what I mean? Dude could pull off being a rock star in the 80s, but he can't pull off literally saying dude in the 2000s. So, like, our boy sounds a little bit off, but in a way that still kind of, like, makes sense for a moment of Lestat's era. Actually, side note, one of my favorite moments of this book was about maybe, like, midway through, kind of earlier in the beginning. But, like, there's one moment where Mona just tells him off, digging a little too deep, but she just tells him off because Lestat is telling Mona, like, ordering her to go change her dress because he's distracted. Ladies, we all know how insulting that is. She tells him off, and it's humbling. It's great. They keep fighting about it for a while, and they have a civil conversation about it later on, where they're both apologizing to each other, but kind of adding or ending on the fact that, like, Mona should have known what he actually meant, and agreed that the dress was a little too much. Mona, girl, if you want to wear the dress, wear the dress. It's fine. Tell him off. He needs to be humbled now and then. So that bit, like, nosedives, but it starts off strong. Also, this book opens up, like, the first chapter, we're back with Lestat, like I said, right? Since, like, Memnoch. It starts off with Lestat kind of bitching at us for not liking Memnoch the Devil, which I don't know what happened. I don't know what the reception was like when it was originally published, but, like, I had a good time with Memnoch, so, like, I don't know what the reception was like back when it was originally published, like I said. But Anne Rice clearly needed to, like, vent a little bit through her, like, self-insert character. I'm convinced that Lestat is her self-insert character. But anyway, actually focusing in on, the main elements of the story, the main, like, plot lines, not just random little tidbits that I liked. The main plot lines are about, finding out what happened to Mona's child, who she named Morrigan. And we meet Rowan Mayfair, because she's the one who's got, like, the chunk of story that we need to know about what happened to Morrigan, and some background details on the whole, like, Telltales. We find out everything that happened to Rowan, which was horribly traumatic. Oh my god. But she is the head doctor and, like, boss of Mayfair Medical, and her and Mona have some beef, which is kind of both like fair and kind of realistic on both sides. Because Rowan, she's a good person and she was the one constantly trying to take care of Mona while she was dying for a couple of years. All of these tests, all of these treatments, all of these little experimental things just to try to keep Mona alive. And, Mona being in that position, obviously not a great mental health space either, and her anger just at being, dying, it's directed towards her doctor. A lot of that anger gets directed towards Rowan. And at one point, Rowan, also, like I said, she's a good person. I do like Rowan. But there is also an added element of guilt on Rowan's end, because there was a moment where Rowan felt, probably also exhausted, just as exhausted as Mona, maybe. And she decided to try to, take care of Mona in a sense of finally ending the suffering. And both of them being witches, especially Mona being like a witch, sensed that idea that Rowan wanted to do, and it terrified her. Obviously, the girl wants to live, so that's when she escapes to Blackwood Farm. So Mona is incredibly angry at Rowan. One, just for that, fair? And Rowan is just endlessly patient and constantly guilty because of that. The Mona and Rowan dynamics within this story, it's probably the most realistic thing and best parts of this story. Credit where credit is due. That was good. Now things do still get weird. This is an Anne Rice novel. Things do still get really weird. And in regards to Rowan, explaining, what happened to the child, at least what she kind of knows about Morrigan, how she's kind of connected to the Telltales people. And I haven't read the Mayfair, trilogy, right? I've been open about that. I skipped the Mayfair trilogy because I'm not really that into the witches. But we get a snippet here of what I kind of think happened within the Mayfair trilogy, enough to at least catch us up for the vampire fans so that we're not completely in the dark, which I do appreciate, a bit of a recap. Because we learn about Lasher, what he did to Rowan, and how Rowan had her own also Taltos child, and what happened to that baby. And also the weird thing is, they're babies, they're children, sure, but they're not actually babies, because the moment that these beings are born from the Mayfair family tree, they do try to explain genetically why some of them can give birth to Taltos, but not all of them, and why Mona is susceptible to this kind of genetic thing. It gets a little twisted, but the moment that these beings are born, they instantly turn into adults. 8-foot tall, 7-foot tall adults in seconds. With magic breast milk as well, okay. Equal parts horrifying and bizarre. So Morrigan, basically the moment she was born, grew up and into an adult, and almost instantly ran off with a male Telltales guy named Asher to basically be his mate and have her own family off. And just left Mona behind with no explanation. It's kind of a little rude on Morrigan's part because she was an adult, actually. You're not going to say anything to your mom? And Rowan still doesn't know where they've gone. Morrigan and this Asher now have just vanished kind of off into the world. No idea where they are, but Mona is still determined to find them and reconnect. And Lestat promises to help out find he just keeps calling them tall people. He wants to help find the strange tall people. And he helps out mainly by actually just calling out, psychically to Maharit, asking if she has seen or heard anything about these super secret, strange, tall people. Which feels both, equal parts narratively convenient, but also kind of smart at the same time. Because, Lestat has no idea where to start the search. So, why not ask, the oldest vampire that he knows? And Maharit does actually get back to him. She does actually contact him, not psychically. She does actually get back to him, though, with information about this island where she has heard about this family of tall people that he's described. And you know how I said not psychically? She not quite subtly hints that, dude, you should try email. This girl is 6,000 years old and is better connected with the world than Lestat is, because she knows email. I love Maharit so much. So Lestat, Mona, and Quinn. Quinn is there. He's been there the whole time. And there are little side plots of what's happening to Patsy. I'll get back to her in a second, but Quinn is kind of just there as a lovesick puppy of just completing the trio, I guess. But dude is also supportive of, his girlfriend's needs. So good on him on that one. The one thing I will give him. I don't really like Quinn. So they all fly off and they find the island that Mahar had mentioned, and it's been overrun by gangsters, and they slaughter them all. I mean, they're vampires, it's easy. There's not much of a fight. But interestingly, they find 3 captive Taltos people there, who are actually the children of Morrigan and the other guy, Asher. Unfortunately, Morrigan and Asher are also dead. And honestly, for Mona's sake, I was really hoping they would reunite. This was actually like tragic when I realized that Morrigan died. Like, aw. But there is a happy ending for the other 3 Taltos because they get to, live and work within Mayfair Medical now with Rowan, and they kind of know her through like the connection with their dad and Morrigan, obviously. And so like it's good on them. Weirdly like little incestuous too, but again, it's Anne Rice. Okay. They're not human. Now that's the main plot. The whole thing with Morrigan and the Taltos people, that's like the main A plot, right? Well, the B plot, there's a couple of B plots. But I think the main important B plot through line is that Lestat is being haunted by a couple of Mayfair ghosts because they're mad that he turned Mona into a vampire. Like, the Mayfair ghosts are mad that the vampires have been interfering with their family, and they're just kind of like fucking with Lestat. It's hilarious. A little underwhelming at the end, but I also kind of like where it went. It was kind of, like I said, humbling Lestat now and then. And remember Patsy? I mentioned Patsy a second ago. Remember Patsy? Quinn's, angry and, traumatized mother who gets no sympathy within that story? Well, she's a ghost now, because remember, Quinn just snapped her neck and left her in the bog. I'll rein that in, but she's in the bog, and her ghost is now traumatizing Jasmine. And, like, I get why. Patsy is also, dead now, but still scared. And Lestat kind of just goes off into the swamp, finds her ghost, and, like, blasts her into the light. I don't really know how, but he something happened. Maybe he's got new, like, angel powers now from the Memnock stunts, and he helped her move on. So no consequences for Quinn, either. Oh, and just to clarify too, I don't know if I really clarified this, but I said like we're back with Lestat, right? It's his point of view the entire time. We're hearing all of this through Lestat's point of view. I wouldn't have minded if Mona had a few chapters, or if this was like a Mona book. Quinn having one book, Mona having the other book. That would have been interesting. But no, we're back with Lestat. It's his point of view the entire time. And thank God, because that did honestly make it better for me to read. And with that in mind, just sticking with Lestat, because of course, rewinding a little bit back to like Rowan, she's a good person. She's a cool character. I like her. She's dynamic. She's got some depth to her. There's an interesting bit where Lestat is just head over heels in love with Rowan, which, sure, Lestat falls in love with almost everyone he sees. Sure. But even, like, he can't explain the type of attraction he feels to Rowan, and Rowan feels it too. She is all over this vampiric man. And for some reason, in regards to Rowan, everyone seems to be in love with her. Like, head over heels in love with her. The other Taltos guy I mentioned, Asher, we never meet him. We see his dead body, but apparently he was in love with Rowan too. And like entrusted her with like his family, and like there was a whole will and stuff. Why can't people just like platonically honestly trust each other that powerfully? Why does it always need to be an unrequited love? You know what I mean? Like, sure, it's an Anne Rice book. We're here for the romantic dynamics as well, right? Like, that's going to be woven in with everybody we meet. But, like, no one... But I guess it's just par for the course here. Of course, everyone is in love with Rowan. Okay. But this book did get me at the end. The last chapter, when Rowan kind of leaves her home, she leaves everything to find Lestat and ask him to turn her into a vampire so that they could be together forever. And he wants to turn her. They both want it. It's her idea. They're making out at nighttime under the trees. But Lestat doesn't do it. He consciously doesn't do it because he knows Rowan still has so much to like live for and do in this mortal life as a human. He doesn't want to take that away from her. So he tells her this. He communicates this to her. But he also shares that like, once you're ready again, I will be here, and if you ask me again in however long you need, then I will turn you and then we can be together. Take your time being human, finish up a few things, then we'll see. And damn it, that got me. That got me. That was cute. That was romantic and like grown up on Lestat's part. with like character development, right? That got me. That actually got me feeling things that most of this book did not. I don't know where Louis is though. I'm a little worried about him. So yeah, overall, I did, as much as I ended up hating, Blackwood Farm, I did have a better time with Blood Canticle. It's not great, but I had a better time. I'm also not in love with like every dynamic kind of explored here, but there are other elements that I do enjoy. There is also like a thematic through line for the whole thing of Lestat honestly wanting to be a saint. He wants to become like a saint. He wants to become like an angel. But I think he means that in like a symbolic sense of just wanting to be and do good. That's always been, the morality of what these beings face, what they want to be versus what they have to be versus what they are. That whole dynamic. But Lestat wants to be a saint, sure. I also kind of think two things. One, I think that's just kind of Anne Rice and her religious views really not beating us over the head, but bleeding through. But it does actually help Lestat himself connect with some of the goodness and humanity actually within him that he's always like denying because he thinks he's such a horrible person. But no, there is actually goodness in him. Case in point, he doesn't turn Rowan Mayfair for her own good. So it's not like plot wise relevant, but it is still important character dynamic wise, if a little bluntly. Now, I don't know if we go back to like the original writing style, or if Lestat is going to be calling everyone dude and baby throughout like Prince Lestat and the ending trilogy. I kind of hope not, but also like that trilogy is just around the corner, and I do remember it like, I don't want to say calming down, but like evens out a little bit more. Sure, we get aliens, so like I know that's coming, but I think we're past the worst of it, and I am glad to get back to a little bit of normalcy with my vampires. But yeah, feel free to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys in a little bit for Prince Lestat. I do like to take breaks, in between series, so I'll see you in a little bit for Prince Lestat. Next week is a little crafting video again. And I'll admit, I kind of wanted to read Crooked Kingdom by Leigh Bardugo. But yeah, I'll see you later.